So let's talk about the Me Too movement and what it's managing to achieve now, because the era of Me Too is apparently upon us, and it's going to ruin all of the things that you held dear that came from previous eras. Let's start by talking about Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines. This is a song that came out in 2013, and I agree could be construed as kind of rapey, which is how a writer for the Daily Beast described it. Now, Robin Thicke himself said that this was the point of the song. As they say here, his demeanour throughout the entire video is, for lack of a better word, sleazy, which was the point. He said, "We tried to do everything that was taboo." In a part of the discussion he says was now taken out of context, people say, "Hey, do you think this is degrading to women?" And he says, "Of course it is. What a pleasure it is to degrade a woman. I've never gotten to do that before. I've always respected women." This is, of course, the purpose of art, to push boundaries in a way that we wouldn't otherwise do in real life. Now, I am fully capable of separating art from reality, and if a person makes a piece of art that is highly offensive, that is not necessarily a reflection of their character. If anything, it could be something that establishes the boundary. This thing goes too far. This is not something we approve of. It's good that it exists because its very existence demarcates such a boundary. Pushing our sensibilities was entirely the point. Now, I'm not really a fan of this song or anything, or of the artist or anything like that, but I think it's important to remember these things in context, because 5 years later, we're in the era of Me Too, as I said, and this is highly offensive, of course. As billboards say, in the midst of the Me Too and Time's Up movements, it's paramount to awaken the minds to those in power that not all kinds of advances are necessarily welcome, even if those just making them are thinking fun, and if the person involved is being playful. The blasé, "I know you want it, no more pretending" undertones of the song further perpetuate the idea of men exercising their presumed power over women in sexual situations. Yes, that was the point. It's meant to be provocative, and apparently it was successful, because it really triggered a bunch of feminists into creating their own parody of Blurred Lines called Defined Lines, and in it they actually say, like, we're going to castrate people and stuff like this. It's actually a lot more graphic than the original Blurred Lines song was, and at one point it was removed from YouTube for being inappropriate, but then it was returned. I'd play some of it, but it might be copyrighted and I don't want to get into the whole thing. This was created by the University of Auckland law students, featuring 3 fully dressed women with the attentions of scantily clad men as they sing about sexism. That's fine. Turnabout is fair play, in my opinion. According to one, they say, "My opinion is that the people don't like the message behind it. It was meant to be a comedic sketch, but we're trying to address the culture of objectifying women in music videos. We think that women should be treated equally." Well, good job. This is fine. I have no problem with this whatsoever. Apparently it's received a lot of criticism from what The Independent at the time in 2013 called rape lobby groups. Perhaps they mean anti-rape lobby groups. With rape crisis spokeswoman Katie Russell saying, "Both the lyrics and the video seem to objectify and degrade women, using misogynistic language and imagery that many people would not only find distasteful or offensive, but really quite old-fashioned. More disturbingly, certain lyrics are explicitly sexually violent and appear to be reinforcing victim-blaming rape myths. For example, women giving mixed signals through their dress and behaviour, saying no when they really mean yes, and so on and so on." Okay. Well done for being offended, you neo-Puritans. The whole point was to be offensive and provocative, and you have been offended and provoked. The modern feminist movement are effectively saying that this is sinful, because they have a particular set of social prescriptions that they cannot bear to see violated. And that was the point of Blurred Lines, to specifically violate these prescriptions. But for me, this is where the Me Too movement is really going too far. Now, a radio station pulled the song "Baby It's Cold Outside," citing the Me Too movement. I'm sure you're familiar with "Baby It's Cold Outside," but what it's about is a man trying to persuade a woman to stay. He's not being rapey towards her. He's trying to be romantic. In fact, in another era, and in fact to many women probably still contemporaneously, this is considered a romantic song. Because, believe it or not, feminists, a lot of women actually want to be wooed and chased and pursued to show that the man really has an interest in her and that he's going to demonstrate this kind of commitment. And again, like the song "Baby It's Cold Outside," there's nothing rapey about it. It's about a guy saying, "Hey, why don't you stay? Here are a bunch of excuses." But a radio station in Cleveland, Ohio has decided to remove "Baby It's Cold Outside" from its playlist following complaints from listeners. Obviously a very small percentage of listeners. The local media report that listeners said the song was inappropriate and at odds with the Me Too movement. Who cares? What difference does it make if it's at odds with the Me Too movement? Unless the Me Too movement has a remarkable amount of social power and social capital that the radio station isn't prepared to try and challenge, even though, as you can see from their own poll that they did on Facebook, 94% would like to still see the song played, with only 6% saying that it's inappropriate. This is the phenomenal influence of the feminist movement. When 6 people out of 100 get to dictate what the other 94 people can or can't listen to, I think that's a problem. I don't think they should be allowed to do this, especially given the subject matter, which isn't actually about rape. I mean, with Robin Thicke, okay, maybe I could understand. Blurred lines, yeah, it is provocative, deliberately so. I can actually completely understand why a radio station would say, look, we are, this is a bit transgressive. We're not happy with that. I mean, you can cite the Me Too movement, or you could just say, well, look, we don't just generally find it appropriate for our radio station. Fine. Even if it was just for the Me Too movement, okay, it's quite an extreme example. As the author of the song said, it was designed to be provocative. But Baby It's Cold Outside wasn't, and it's not an offensive song to anyone who isn't a radical feminist. Glenn Anderson, the host of this station, blogged that the song was written in a different era and that the lyrics felt manipulative and wrong. Manipulative. I mean, he's trying to persuade her to stay by giving her excuses to stay. The whole point, baby, it's cold outside, why don't you stay here, it's warm. That's not manipulative, that's just trying to encourage her to do something that she does want to do, and she's not shy about saying that in the song, but because of other social pressures for chastity, I suppose, she feels that she should go. He says, the world we live in is extra sensitive now, and people get easily offended. But in a world where Me Too has finally given women the voice that they deserve, the song has no place. But the song doesn't reference any of the problems that Me Too was trying to address, of powerful men using their power and exploiting their positions in order to extract sexual gratification from women who otherwise wouldn't have wanted to do it. The song is about a romancing couple, and the man wants to go further, and the woman feels that she shouldn't. But she doesn't not want to. And he's not forcing her. She is at any point able to leave in the context of the song. That's why he's trying to persuade her. Of course, the BBC have to give the radical feminist interpretation. Normally performed as a duet between a man and woman, features lyrics such as, I simply must go, but baby it's cold outside. The answer is no, but baby it's cold outside. Another line, say what's in this drink? No cabs to be had out there, is perhaps one of the most controversial and has been interpreted by some as a reference to date rape. Obviously, it's not a reference to date rape, it's a reference to an alcoholic drink. But I suppose that's rape now too, isn't it? So where do we go from here? Of course, we know where we go from here. Every interaction has to be monitored and policed by the state, because otherwise a feminist might be offended, or maybe we wouldn't know who raped who. If both people got drunk and they happen to be the same sex, my goodness, who's the rapist? Maybe they're both rapists. Who knows? And of course, because this was made in another era and feminists are wildly ideological harridans, pointing out that say what's in this drink is an old movie line from the 1930s that means I'm telling the truth doesn't matter. What matters is that the feminist finds it offensive regardless of the context. And what a surprise, we get to hear from Cleveland Rape Crisis Center president and CEO. Why? Who cares about their opinion? There's no rape involved here. This is not a crisis. It's like a 100-year-old song. It really pushed the line of consent, though. Not really. She still has to consent, and if she... Not really. She can leave at any time. The problem is she doesn't want to leave, which is why she's hearing his excuses, why she's listening to his reasoning, and why she's allowing herself to be persuaded into this. This is absurd. But of course, it's current year, and what we know is consent is yes, and if you get a no, it means no, and you should stop right there, even if that woman is saying no because she wants you to chase her. It's tough stuff, the dating game, and apparently it's tough stuff listening to old songs if you're a pathological feminist. There's nothing wrong with this song. There's no reason to withdraw it from radio stations, and most people, 94% of people polled, seem to agree. Nobody needs a feminist's opinion on what we can and cannot listen to. If the feminists don't like it, they can change the station.